Hey guys, if you can think about how you found this podcast, maybe it's on Instagram or TikTok, maybe someone shared it with you. I don't run ads for the show or have sponsorships, so the only way this grows is through word of mouth. If this was valuable for you in any way, my only ask is if you could share this with someone who you think would help their investing journey or business. Thanks a lot, and let's get to the episode. Well, welcome to STR Like the Best. I'm your host, Michael Chang. It is my great pleasure to welcome my friend Humza Zafar to the show. Humza, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Humza, you and I have known each other for a long time, but for the folks that don't know about you and your story, why don't you give us a quick introduction of you and your business?
My name is Humza Zafar, 27 years old. Started my rental arbitrage business about 3 years ago. I went to school for electrical engineering, minor in computer science and math. Graduated in 2018, worked at 9 to 5 as an engineer in Philadelphia for about 3 years. While I was working that job starting in 2020 of October, that's when I started the arbitrage business in Philly. And while I was working that job, I was essentially working on the business at the exact same time, working at night shift from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., sleeping 4 hours, and then starting the business, working on the business, cleaning apartments, doing everything myself with just my wife and I from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., and so on and so forth. We then eventually scaled the business to what it is now, 3 years later, 400 apartments, doing over $1 million a month, all arbitrage in 7 different cities.
That's 3 years.
3 years,
400,
that's it.
400 apartments,
400 all
$1 million a month.
arbitrage apartments, yeah.
It's amazing. Remember when you sent me a Facebook message? I think around when you first got started, and we were talking about like accounting and stuff, and to see your journey since then till now is pretty amazing. So definitely dive in on that. But before we start, we both operate in Philly, and Philly's the city of brotherly love, but it's not always that loving. Give us a memorable guest story that you remember from your early days.
My second ever unit, that was in Queens Village off Montrose Street. My second ever unit, the landlord was a really nice Asian couple. They let me Airbnb, no problem. And I furnished out a whole apartment myself. My wife and I built the furniture. It had some sort of sentimental value towards us. My third ever booking, it was a Friday night for one night. Keep in mind, I had nothing. I had no security measures in place like I do now. Because back then, I was just learning the business, right? Didn't really do any background checks. We basically let anybody stay in the apartment, ask a few questions, but nothing really too major. Because the main thing, I was really excited to see some money come in. Anyways, we let the people book. They book it. That same night, I go to work. And at 3 o'clock at work, I'm working the night shift. I get a random inquiry on Airbnb. Someone's inquiring saying, hey, I'm your next door neighbor for this property. There's a huge party going on. We're about to call the police. Please come fix this issue right away. As soon as I saw that, my heart dropped. I had no idea because the Ring cameras were unplugged, the noise sensors were unplugged. As soon as they walked inside, they unplugged the Wi-Fi and started throwing a huge party. So I then tell my boss at that time, I have to go to the bathroom. I have severe diarrhea. I get in my car, drive straight to Queens Village from the Philadelphia airport, which is where I was working. And it was like a 15-minute drive. I get there. I start banging on the door and saying, let me in. Everyone's throwing a party. No one's opening the door. I have the code. I type it in, unlock the door, walk inside. Now, I'm inside. There's like 15, 16 people inside, probably 7, 8 guys. And I started yelling. I'm like, all right, everybody, get out right now. Party's over. Party's done. And everybody inside is, we're not leaving. We paid to stay here. We'll stay here as long as you want. And they wanted to fight me and stuff. I'm like, all right, no problem. Let's take it outside. So on the way there, I actually called the police and told them the exact situation. Then I'm probably going to need backup. So as I go outside, 8 of them walk downstairs and follow me outside. Obviously, I'm not going to fight 8 guys from Philadelphia by myself. There's about 6, 7 police officers waiting outside for me. Then the police officers go inside and handle business, kick everybody out. And as they're leaving, they're taking all their food, throwing it on the sofas, dumping huge loads of pasta all over the floors, just creating an entire big giant mess, destroying the entire place. They finally leave. Neighbors get pissed off. And I'm sitting there in an apartment full of filth, garbage everywhere. It's 4 o'clock in the morning. My boss is blowing up my phone saying, where are you? You need to come back to your shift. And at that point, I'm like, what the hell am I doing in my life right now? So I left everything as is, locked up, went straight to work, finished up my shift at around 8 a.m. We had a guest checking in at 11 a.m. So I drove straight there, picked up my wife, told her to wake up, called one of my cleaners, and then I spent the next 3 hours, drank a Monster Energy drink, cleaning the entire place, scrubbing it clean, making it look good as new again, just in time for the next guest who's checking in around, let's say, 12, 1 o'clock. So that was an insane moment, an insane day for me. And I told myself, if I can handle this, I can handle pretty much anything.
That's why you've been successful There have been a lot of entrepreneurs. I think 9 out of 10 people would have been like, I'm done. This isn't worth it. But these are people I have to deal with. And I think it's the people that can see past that and look at it the way that you did. If I can get through this, I can get through anything. And then having that mindset is ultimately what's going to drive you to success in business, because it's just a series of problem solving.
It's all it is, right? Like
it really is.
100%. In engineering, right? Like people always ask, do you think going to school for engineering was worth it based on what you're doing now? I tell them, yeah, it is. I'm not working on circuits every day, but all engineering is problem solving, right? You study for an exam, you go to the exam, and all the questions have nothing to do with any of the homework you studied. Now you got to basically problem solve and figure out how to solve the problem and figure out the best solution. Same with business. It's the exact same thing. The reason why a lot of big CEOs from a lot of tech companies all have engineering backgrounds is because we're taught to problem solve. Not necessarily how to do math or do calculus. That's how to solve problems with a limited amount of information or limited resources at your disposal.
So let's talk about that, right? First off, what were you doing what were you doing the midnight shift at Philadelphia Airport?
So I was the job that I hated. I was electrical controls engineer working on PLCs.
And what is that? Okay, translate that to English for us.
Basically, I was making sure all the machinery, automations, and robotics of the airport behind the scenes work properly. Making sure your bags, as soon as you drop them off at the check-in, they actually show up on the plane.
Oh man, okay. So you're the one to blame that when my bags don't show up.
Basically, 100%.
Okay. All right. And then how'd you learn about the arbitrage business? Like social media, like someone tell you?
Yeah, people talking about arbitrage on YouTube. And I basically saw this one.
Who on YouTube? Who on YouTube?
There's a few people on YouTube that I saw talking about it, but they gave me the idea, and I realized I'm like, you know what? I live in Philly, might as well try it myself. And I'm like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. I spent that after basically I binge watched every free video I could on YouTube. Yeah. I started calling landlords and emailing landlords that entire day shift at work. Made a random website, and within 3-4 hours, I didn't have an LLC, didn't have EIN, like literally nothing. Found my first landlord in Philly. This was in October, November-ish of 2020. And I basically told him, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. You have this house sitting vacant for 5-6 months now. Let me rent it out. He said, you can rent it out for 4 months only because he wants to move back into it in 4 months. I said, that's not a problem. The house came fully furnished, minus one bedroom. Oh, okay. My wife and I just furnished one bedroom. And we basically started making money. The first month, we did about $4,300 in revenue. Rent was about $2,200. And we cleaned the unit ourselves every single day. So we made about $2,000, a little bit over $2,000 in profit.
That's not bad, actually. Yeah. Yeah, it's nice, right? How much are you making? How much are you making as a control kind of quality?
Being a control engineer, my home base office was in Detroit. I was getting paid about $4,000 a month after tax, about 70 grand, 68 grand. 70 grand, okay. Because I was living in Philadelphia on the job site for 2 years, they basically bumped my pay to $8,000 a month after tax. Free car.
Oh, that's not bad, actually.
Yeah, free car, free gas. Making $8,000 a month after tax. So after tax, I was taking home $8,000 with no car expense, no insurance expense, no gas expense, and yeah, that's basically it.
That's not bad, actually. Okay.
Yeah, okay. At 22 wasn't bad at all.
At 22, yeah, you're clearing like 100K post tax. So it was like 150. That's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
Was it something inside you that you were just like, I don't want to do this job anymore? Because I think a lot of people would be like, look, I'm making $8K a month, I have a free car, like. I'm married, you know what I mean? They have kids, or they just go and live, live the life of a 23-year-old. I think not a lot of 23-year-olds want to go and bust up Philadelphia parties at 4 a.m. and then drink a Monster drink and get on your hands and knees and clean. It's not very sexy.
Even with my friends, we're all wagey and all have 9-to-5s. The biggest
what's a wagey? What's define a wagey?
A wagey is someone who basically works a regular 9-to-5 job. And basically loves a 9-to-5 job and basically is internally doomed to be a corporate slave for the rest of their life.
Why do you say it's a corporate slave? And I'm going to push back on that a little bit, right? A slave is someone that doesn't have a choice, right? Are you saying they don't have a choice?
Majority of people do not have a choice.
Why?
Majority of Americans, especially in the West, fall into a consumer debt lifestyle where they're basically living paycheck to paycheck every single month. Your kid's schooling, your wife's shopping, every single dollar that you make is being spent on just consumer debt. So you have no choice but to keep working that job, because when you stop that job or you quit, your life basically stops working.
So the Western economic system would stop if we didn't have consumer debt. Yeah, look,
there's nothing wrong with it, but a lot of people don't live within their means. A lot of people live on credit card debt. They live on buying things that are not assets. They live on buying the new Chanel, the new Gucci, even though they only make $5,000 a month.
I think this is where you come from an immigrant background, as do I, and I think there's a little bit of that where it infused in our thinking very early on not to take debt, but just like you don't save what you earn to invest for the future. And it's not about consuming, it's investing so that you have enough, right? And I think there's actually a little bit of that where it's good to start, but also think, bad at a certain point because you become too conservative and you just put your money in a bank account versus
Of course,
investing it.
of
So
course.
how, I guess like that for me was a part of my personal journey was making that flip. Like, how did that change for you? Like, how, because you have to continue to invest to grow to 400 units, right? If it's $10,000 per unit, right? Like you put over $4 million of furniture into.
Back then, it wasn't 10K a unit. Back then, it was like furniture was a lot cheaper, maybe like 3.5 to 5K a unit. But yeah, if you do the math and average it out,
You've spent millions of dollars on furniture,
military, yeah.
whereas you could have spent $1 million on a house, on Chanel bags, cars, watches, whatever, right? Like, why do that? Like, how did you change that mindset for yourself that like I'm going to continue to reinvest in this business and make it bigger and bigger versus just putting some of that money on the side and enjoying it, consuming it?
So you have to understand the position I was in. Majority of people don't quit their job or they don't leave their job because they hate the job. I didn't hate my job. I hated my boss. Majority of people who are leaving jobs and job hopping do for two reasons. One being financial and one being the person that you actually work for. Because that person you see every single day, you report to them every single day. And they're assholes and they're making your life a lot harder. That's the main reason why people want to leave their job. I had an insane boss. This person would ask me every single day, Humza, what are you working on today? Humza, what did you work on for the last 2 hours? Humza, what are you working on tomorrow morning? I'd be going to the bathroom, calling the landlords, but he'd follow me to the bathroom and see why is Humza taking so long in the bathroom. It got super crazy. I'm like, all right, this is insane. I can't be a wagey forever. This guy has to go. Or I have to go. One of the two has to happen. Because my last boss at my job was amazing. Love the guy. And that's the person that I want to be more like and emulate and replicate as a boss. If that person was still my boss, I don't think I probably would have quit my job. Or if anything, I don't think I'd be at 400 units right now. The reason why I told myself, I'm like, all right, this business has to take off. It has to be insanely profitable and I have to get out of this rat race. I cannot be working for this guy anymore. I got to bounce.
What was that number? Did you have a number in mind? Did you have like a price AK?
I was making, I think December 2021 is when I quit my job. Or I think it was December 22. I honestly can't remember. It's been a little while. I think it's December 21 I quit my
21,
job.
I think.
Yeah, 21 I quit my job. I was in December. I made about $100,000 in revenue that month. I think I took home like 30, 40K. The reason why I couldn't quit my job is because I'm not an American citizen. I'm a Canadian. So I had to, for me to live in the United States, I had to keep working my regular 9-to-5 job if I want to continue living in the United States until my new investor visa came through. Finally, when that happened, I basically told my boss, record it, peace out, I'm bouncing, I'm good to go, and off to the races. Let's get this business to $1 million a month.
I had to say that was one of my favorite videos, actually, one of yours. And I'm gonna add that to the show notes because that's actually one of my favorite Humza videos because you can see the emotion in Humza's face. Actually, after you said it, you paused for a second when you said it, and because it looked like you were a little nervous actually when you said it.
Yeah.
And then when you hold on, and then after you said it, and I could see that, and I know that smirk you have, and you know that smile, like yeah, I did it, and it's that contrast. That 2 seconds where you're nervous to say it, and then when your boss is like, oh, okay, tell me why, and then you smiled, and I think you probably wanted to say it because of I didn't like you or whatever it was, and you're like, oh, that was. I think you really showed through there.
Yeah, like they don't really expect a lot of people to quit. When I was working my job, there were people that have been there for 20 years, 30 years straight at the exact same company, making 110, 130K a year, and just doing the same mundane thing every single day. Living for the weekend, Friday night, beers. I'm like, dude, this is insane. I can't imagine 30 years of doing this. Is insane. I don't know what I'll do. I had like a mental breakdown one day, like driving from work. I'm like, this can't be my life forever.
Was it something that happened in your youth? Did your family immigrated from overseas to from Pakistan to
Canada?
What did your parents do?
So my dad's an engineer. I went to school for engineering in Pakistan. Then he came to America by himself. Then there's master's in mechanical engineering at Wayne State University in Michigan. Oh, okay. And then now he works at Stellantis at Chrysler FCA as an engineer. Okay. My brother's an engineer. He went to school for electrical engineering. Now he works at Ford. But he himself now, just last month, made $75K on Airbnb. So he's basically applied for the same visa I have. He's going to be quitting his job very soon. And I did the same thing as well.
Your parents don't let him quit? He's not married yet, though.
Yeah, I know. So the rule is basically in my house, you can't quit your 9-to-5 unless you're married. Like in our community, when it comes to getting married, anytime you tell someone or the girl's father asks, what did your son do? You say, oh, he has a business. They don't think it's a real business. They think he's basically doing nothing. So that's the worry parents have. But I told my dad, I'm like, at this point, everyone knows us in the community. No one's going to think that whatsoever. When they see us driving Lamborghinis around and having those cars parked on our driveway.
It's funny you say that, actually, how communities, and I know we're going on a little tangent here, but in my community, if you drove around a Lamborghini, they would probably, in the Asian American community, like if you drove around a Lamborghini, People give you a little eye. Does that, you have a nice car, by the way, very nice car. How's that feel? Like, how's that feel to go from, and honestly, a community part, but go from not a company owned car, probably not something fancy, to like driving a Lamborghini? Like, how's that make you feel?
The last time I drove the Lambo was probably the one time you came to Dallas. So I probably drove it 2 times. And since April, basically, in the last 6 months, since my daughter was born. There's no point of driving it now. And I don't really take it out by myself. I usually take it out for date nights and things like that. But we don't really do that anymore because now we have a baby at home. So we're always taking we're always taking the Toyota SUV with the car seats and going everywhere.
All right. Well said. All right, let's swing back to the business. Give us a little bit on your growth trajectory, right? Like, you got your first unit November, Q4 of 2020. Like, where were you a year later? How many units did you have?
I actually have that exact number for you right here. If you don't mind me pulling it up real quick.
While you pulling
it up, is that okay?
Yeah. While you're pulling that up, though, right? I want you to think about that number and that journey, right? Was it a lot harder to go from 1 to the number that you'll tell us versus 24 months later? Let's talk about that a little bit. Where were some of the real pain points? Was it hard to go from like 1 to 2?
So I actually have the number I can tell you right now. By January of 2021, I was at 7 units doing $35,000 a month. Then in March of 2021, I was at 19 units doing $50,000 a month. And that's when I moved back from Philadelphia back to Canada because my job in Philly ended and I had to basically work in the office in Detroit. Then after that, let's go to September of 2021. I was at 32 units. 32 units. That month I did
all in Philly or
Detroit, Dallas, Philly, etc. Then I was at 32 units and I did $100,000 that month in revenue, took home about 30 grand in profit. And I started like basically 6 months ago. Then after that, in January, I blitzscaled like crazy and I was at 7 units and did $150,000 that month. So from September to January, I added like 30 something units because I negotiated a lot of rents free. Over the 30 units I negotiated in multiple cities, I got 2 months free on every single apartment. So that really helped with cash flow and helped with growth. Then after that, in May of 2022, I went up to 128 units.
Sorry, hold on. Let's pause for a second. Like, you're making 100K a year, right? You did live too. Like, how'd you finance this? Like, because you get rent, you can get rent free, right? So you have to pay your rent. Like, you still got to pay the security deposit, or sometimes you do. And then you have to buy the furniture.
So the biggest thing is, what are the costs that I can basically, cash costs, right?
Cash costs.
Because cash costs are the ones that I have to pay upfront right away. Security deposits, I basically negotiated all the way down to $200 per unit. I wasn't paying a full month, not even a half a month, not even $500. $200 a unit, and that's like the max I'm going to pay. Some buildings, I even negotiated no security deposits. No last month's rent, just that first month. But even then, if it was 2 months free, I'm not paying anything for basically the next 2 months. Mm-hmm. Furniture was the only other expense, the big expense that I had to basically pay. Furniture was pretty much funded all on business credit cards. So I opened up a lot of business credit cards, 0% APR, never paid $1 in interest, not allowed to, and then basically use that to basically fund the growth. And as a profit would come in, I'd take that money to pay off that business credit card and rinse and repeat.
Okay. Was it hard getting this many business credit cards? Because it's a lot of business credit.
Yeah. So basically through combinations of Amex and then combinations through Chase, BOA, Capital One, just basically, yeah.
Okay. Does it ever worry you? You're a religious guy and you have, I think, interest is not permitted in your belief system. So it's even tighter, right? Because you have to make those payments before the interest kicks in.
Yeah, I just had a $280,000 Amex Platinum payment 5 days ago. Just paid it off cash, no problem. Yeah. 28 days.
Does that worry you? That stress worry you? Because at the end of the month, it's like you got some really monster payments with rent, credit card payments, your staff, cleaners.
Yeah, my monthly overhead. So right now we're in November of 2023. By December 1st, because right now we're furnishing 20 units, I'll be at 400 units, 405 units. My overhead, rent, utilities, expenses, payroll, housekeeping, everything should be around $800,000 a month. And that's break even.
And then how do you manage that stress? That's a lot of dollars and cash out the door every single month. And look, this business, we're in the same business. It's short-term rentals, right? So your revenue visibility is 30 days out. 30 days out. You have a pretty good sense 30 days out. You're facing these big nuts every month, right? $800K of money. So just talk to us a little bit about, and I know there are systems behind it, but talk to us on your mindset, like how have you graduated from having that one unit to now having this very nice, profitable business. But it takes a certain mindset to get to that level. Because most people, I would say most people like have 100 units. Okay, I feel pretty good about this. I'm making, say, $100K a month. Like, that's good money. It's $1 million a year. and I'm just going to go and chill or do something. But you continue to grow that, and now you have a fairly large liability every single month. Like, talk to us just about the thinking about how you manage that.
So in terms of the stress or the cash flow?
Both.
All right. So in terms of cash flow, I'll do the first one, right? I basically can see how much money is coming in just based off the current bookings for next month, but also looking at previous performances. Last year of 2022 November, I lost $50,000 with 180 units. So I'm like, all right, if now that I have 380 or 390, whatever it is, double the amount of units, that means technically I should lose $100,000 for November, which is the complete opposite this month. This month already, I'm at $650,000 in revenue, and we're on November 3rd. We have the entire rest of the month left to go, and I'm only 30% occupied. So this month, I'll probably do $1.2, $1.3 million in revenue. So like, I know this year is a lot better than last year because of one, I pretty much got rid of all the bad properties in my business, got rid of them, let them go. Then after that, I basically worked on reducing my overhead, increasing margins, specifically with housekeeping. I saw what percentage of revenue housekeeping was, and it was way too high. I had to decrease it as much as possible, and that's what I've been working on for the last 3 months, is decreasing housekeeping to as low as it possibly can. Where I'm paying $25 in some cities now to clean a 1-bedroom apartment, $35 to clean a full 2-bedroom apartment, like fully clean, turnover, and everything. Before, I was paying $85 to $95, sometimes $75, sometimes even $125 just to clean these apartments because I was cleaning contractors. For the last 4 months, I went really hard during summer to fire them all and bring everything in-house and hire people at $14 an hour or 25 unit, whatever you want to call it.
Okay. And then, so focusing on margins, and then what about what about mindset wise? Like, how do you, I think it helps the visibility of seeing your cash flow and your expenses. But talk to us about just the mindset. Okay, like, how are you okay with this much money coming out the door? Because it's a lot of stress, and maybe bookings are a little slower, or something happens in a city or a building.
Yeah. So slow season is pretty much upon us. After November, it's December, January, February. Over the last year, 2022, I lost a total of $250,000. All right, over those 4-month period for 180, 200 apartments. Now that I'm double, technically I should lose 500,000. So I know for sure last year is not going to be a repeat of this year. I just don't know how much of a delta it's going to be because I can't use last year's numbers to compare to this year's numbers. Even though RevPARs are lower than this year, my numbers have been way higher because of the unit size.
Better units.
Yeah, they have way better units, better locations. Yeah. All right, margins are better. So that's the main reason why. So honestly, it's a shot in the dark. Then in February, I have 5 units starting. I have to spend $500,000 of cash to basically furnish those units. Right. And then on top of that, I have other landlords hitting me up for 20, 30 units. So I'm trying to push everything off to around February 15th, end of February, because right then and there, if I have those 2 months free, 6 weeks free, the money from March, April, May, June, July, it's just going to come flying from the sky from how much money I'm going to be making.
So you got to survive the next few months.
Just 3 months. I tell myself, if I can make it past the next 90 days, I'll be very rich basically after February.
Why continue to arbitrage? I think a lot of people will start buying properties, or people do like co-hosting, midterm rentals. There are other strategies, right? But you've stuck very closely with rental arbitrage, short-term rentals. Why have you quote unquote diversified your risk?
We then basically go back to the same point where I can't get a mortgage for anything, all right? So I have to buy things in cash. So if I can scale the arbitrage business, let's say to 500 units. 500 units doing $3,000 a month is $1.5 million a month in revenue. Take home 500,000, let's say 30% of that, right? Maybe 400, 500K. Then if I'm taking home net profit for 500K, that's like buying one single family house every single month in all cash. And then Airbnb that, making 6, 7K a month. Then at that point, once I'm at the 500 units and I'm basically seeing how the market is, house prices are coming down, interest rates are really high, I have a lot of cash, a high cash flowing business that has the power to start buying basically a lot of things in just full cash.
Is that the plan? Is it the roadmap for you?
That generally is the plan, yeah.
You can go buy more. Okay. Do you ever feel like you get more? I think there's going to be more and more arbitrage deals next year as a lot more multifamily gets built. They're on these floating rates. They're going to be they're under a lot of pressure.
Yep.
What makes you stop at 500? Why not go to 600, 800?
Yeah, if the right deal comes my way, I'll take it. What I'm generally focused on, so like right now it's November, we're furnishing 20 units right now between 3 different cities. These are commitments already made 2 months ago. So we're just going to build them out, and it is what it is. But after that, I'm not furnishing anything for December, nothing for January. And even after 2023, I'm focusing more on margin not just increasing random unit count. That's not really the whole point. The whole point is to basically keep whatever's left over, not just increase your top line revenue. It doesn't make any sense, right? So if let's just say hypothetically, I wanted to make an extra $1 million in net profit for the year of 2024. For me to make $1 million in net profit, I have two ways: either get more units or increase my current units and increase your margin. So for me to make $1 million in net profit, assuming each unit makes $1,000 in profit a month, I have to, let's say, get 80 more units. How much would it cost to furnish 80 units? Let's just do the math. 80 units, let's just say 10 times 10,000. That's going to cost me $800,000 that I have to spend to make an extra $1 million in profit. The second option is I can take my 500 units and then increase margin by $200. $200 times 500 units. What is that? That's about $100,000. Yeah, it's $100,000 for the month. So I just have to basically increase my margins by $150 to $200 for every single unit across the portfolio times 12 months. That's over $1 million in profit I made that way without spending $800K of cash, without going through the hassle of negotiating 80 more units, building them all out. I can increase my current margins by an extra $200, and there's definitely room for that, and just make an extra $1 million that way. I'm focusing now.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I'm focusing now on making sure that my current units, bring them up to the highest profitability that I possibly can. And the biggest one, obviously, is housekeeping. Then on top of that, all the deals that I have that are coming up, that are big deals, working with developers, not these random property management companies who have 5-10 units. That doesn't interest me anymore. I want whole entire buildings, like the building that I took over in Pittsburgh. I converted that 45-unit building to an Airbnb hotel, and that building makes great money. Right. So those are the deals that I want to do. Entire buildings, 30, 40, 50 units, not these 5-10 unit deals. It's a lot more nuances, a lot more bottlenecks, and just it's not really worth my time anymore.
You graduated now to buildings now. You got to, I think there's opportunity. I think there's opportunity there. You got to get some equity in some of these buildings too. If you're going to be signing these leases, I think there's definitely opportunity for them to give you some equity since you're going to be such a big part of, and this is a pretty normal thing to do. You have to ask and negotiate for it, obviously, but that's definitely an option, a way to get equity into a property without actually put cash down or take a mortgage. What I find like extremely impressive about what you've done is just your ability to scale this, right? Doing 20 units at a time is not easy. Like it's a difficult thing to do, right? Like how have you scaled the operations to be able to, you're in 7 cities now. So you have 20 units right now, just ballpark, like how many units per city are you growing? Are you building out right now?
Yeah, so right now, my goal is to basically expand vertically, not horizontally. I don't want to enter 20 cities and have only 30 units each. I basically realized if I scale vertically and get 100 to 200 apartments in a city, my margins increase like crazy because of economic efficiency, right? So now the current cities that I'm in, we're just scaling vertically in those 7 cities. On average right now, 3 of the 4 cities I have, I think 2 or 3 cities I have maybe 80 units in. The other one's about 40 to 50.
So how are you actually building them out? Like I said, you have the 20 units in there in 2 cities, right? Tell us a little bit like how are you building out? Are you hiring people full time there? Do you have dedicated people that are building out stuff for you? Like for example, how are you actually doing that?
In Dallas, for example, we just furnished, I think, 70 units in the last 4 months.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and the big building downtown, the other operator basically left, got kicked out, whatever it was. I took over all 70 units. And we had to paint every single wall, add more furniture, add more beds, basically bring them up to a higher standard if you want to actually make some money. And they gave it to us in batches of, I think, 10 or 15 every couple of weeks. So it takes a couple of weeks, about 2 weeks to get 15 of those big giant units built, everything distributed, everything built, walls painted, Wi-Fi set up, smart locks installed. So I have a supervisor, for example, in Dallas who runs the entire show. I have no idea about anything. The furniture order is made. The furniture arrives. Him and his team, it's him and 12 people. He just picks off the side of the road from Home Depot, and they just go $14-15 an hour and just work hard from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. Really? He calls the photographers. He schedules all that. The photos get sent. My team lists them all up, connects to Price Lab. They handle everything. Like I have no idea about anything until it's
how do you manage it though? Like, do you approve the orders? Like, do you approve the designs?
Yeah, so we have a standard design for everything. If you look at all my units, almost everything looks the exact same. The same coffee tables, the same sofas, the same nightstands. Basically, it's all the exact same. So everything's saved. We just literally hit order, and that's pretty much it. All the quantities, we know exactly how much we're ordering. Once
do you
everything
approve
arrives,
the orders?
Yeah, I always make sure. Like for some like higher end units that we did, for example, like I have a unit in Philly. The rent's $3,000. Since for the last 6 months, I was doing $70,000 a month. but I spent almost $20,000 on furniture because it's a really unique property. I wanted to go extra, and it was worth it. So for that one, I specifically went in, make sure the design was good, everything looked nice, and then went ahead and approved the order. But for everything else, it's very standard, very one standard flow.
So just find one really good. So the secret is finding one really good person in your market that
Agreed.
just is your right hand person,
Agreed.
and then let them run and just let them run with it. Do you try to take the lessons from the boss that you really liked? Sound like there was a boss that you really liked that you respected. Sound like you could have worked with that person for a long time versus other person that you disliked and you're like, I gotta get. He was a person that I guess you should be thankful to him because he made your life so miserable that you're like, there's no way I'm going to do this, which motivated you. Has any of that kind of trickled into your management style and how you manage your
even with my
your global
COO,
talent team?
even with my city supervisors, I'm not someone who's overbearing, who's constantly asking, what are you working on? What are you doing? I just let people do what needs to get done. And if the job gets done and the results were good, that's basically all I need from you. I don't need to constantly be checking what time you're opening your laptop, what time you're stopping your shift, how long your bathroom break is, how long lunch break is. I don't care. I care about results. I'm a results driven, right? As long as the job is getting done and things are that need to be finished are getting finished on time, on schedule, everything's being done properly, that's all I care about.
Okay. The Humza Zafar operating system. I like it. Any last words as you think about your journey? And I know I always ask this question to all my guests. What's one of the kindest things that someone's done for you along this journey that has helped you along that you look back and say, man, I can really appreciate that? The person didn't have to do that for me, but they did.
The kindest thing that somebody's done for me. The kindest thing. Honestly, I don't know. Everyone's pretty ruthless in this industry. Every landlord I work with hasn't really done me any big favors, but I'm trying to think. Honestly, I'd probably say like you, when you helped me with my whole accounting situation. I hired this accountant from New York or Jersey, wherever it was, did my taxes. It was complete debauchery. Everything looked wrong. Everything was like insane. Like the numbers you were seeing didn't make sense. I'm like, I hired literally an idiot. I needed an expert, basically, someone who's very versed in our industry. And I had no one to ask. Of course, Michael Chang, who's New York based, Wall Street based. He has definitely connections. You hooked me up with their CPA firm, and they've been great ever since.
Yeah, no, they're good. I'm glad it's helpful to you. And I've learned a lot from you as well. And I appreciate you stopping by today and for this conversation. It's possible. And I really wanted to focus on the mindset part because I think that for you is what makes you special, right? Like there are a lot of smart people out there, but I think it's like someone that has the right mindset, that is driven, that can see through going to a random Philadelphia apartment at 4 a.m. and possibly in a fight with 6 people that are probably drunk, having the cops there, calling your wife to go and, hey, we got to go and clean this because we got to check in the next day. Some people would have been like, whatever, let's just cancel next check-in. I don't want to deal with this. Or I would have found some whatever reason and you just persevered through that. And not only that, also had the right mindset of saying, if I can get through this, I can get through anything versus I think 90% of people would have been, 95% of people would have been like, this isn't worth it. Okay, we're making a little bit of money here, but I could have gotten hurt tonight. I could have, this could happen, that could have happened. And I think that is what makes entrepreneurship hard, but what makes it so rewarding, right? Because you problem solve that, and then that's carried you on to 400 units and 4,000 units. Whatever you're going to do over the next 10 years. And I'm really excited to be friends with you and see you in that journey.
The thing that I will say about what you said to finish off is that the mind and body need stress in order to grow. If you have a comfortable lifestyle, there's no growth happening whatsoever. There's no plan B. If you have a plan B and your back's not against the wall, you're not under stress because you're always relying on plan B. When you have no plan B, you have no other options left, you have nowhere to go, that is when your cortisol, your body, your adrenaline starts pumping and you realize, all right, this is it. We got to make shit happen. And that's what I thrive under. If I'm not stressed, if there's not even a little bit amount of stress in my life, if I'm on vacation for too long, I need to find something to solve and I need my back against the wall. That's when I operate the best I can be.
And you have. It's impressive, my friend. I'm excited to see what you have in store. And thank you for sharing your story with the community. And I appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Let's get to the episode.